History is full of these complicated characters. People who are both the hero and the villain, the creator and the destroyer, all wrapped up in one. But I don't think anyone embodies that contradiction quite like Diego de Landa, a 16th century Spanish friar whose story is it's a wild ride of fire, faith, and a very, very strange kind of preservation.
Yeah, let's just jump right into the heart of this thing with this quote from Mayanist William Gates. It's a heavy accusation. Think about that for a second. Gates is saying that for every single piece of knowledge Landa managed to save, he torched 99 others. It perfectly sets up the two warring sides of this man's legacy.
And that really is the big question we're tackling here, isn't it? It just sounds impossible. How could the exact same person be responsible for one of the worst acts of cultural destruction against the Maya and also provide the single most important key to understanding their entire civilization? Let's get into it.
All right. To even start to get our heads around this paradox, we've got to travel back in time. We're going to the Yucatán Peninsula in the mid-1500s. And you have to understand, the Spanish conquest wasn't just about armies and land, it was a spiritual war. And Diego de Landa, well, he was one of its most fanatical soldiers.
So picture this. Diego de Landa shows up in 1549, and he has this one single-minded mission. He sees himself as a spiritual conquistador. He's there to bring the Catholic faith to the Maya people. And in his mind, anything, and I mean anything that gets in the way of that, whether it's local traditions, religious statues, ancient books, it's not just different, it is the work of the devil, and it has to be completely wiped out.
So how do you get from a zealous missionary just doing his job to, well, a full-blown reign of terror? Let's trace the steps that led directly to that giant bonfire.
Okay, this timeline really shows you how fast everything just spiraled out of control. For more than a decade, Landa is working, using some pretty extreme pressure and even physical violence to convert the Maya. But then comes the trigger. May 1562, in a cave near the town of Maní, they find Maya idols and human skulls. For Landa, this is it. This isn't a small slip-up. This is proof of a massive conspiracy against God. And within a month, he unleashes a horrific inquisition.
Now, to understand why he did what he did, you have to try and get inside his head for a second. Landa didn't see himself as some evil tyrant. No, he saw himself as the last line of defense for the one true faith. He was absolutely convinced that there was this secret underground rebellion of Maya priests trying to bring back their old ways, complete with forbidden rituals and human sacrifice. He truly believed he had to stamp it out before it was too late.
And this belief, this absolute conviction, it leads directly to the most horrifying moment of this whole story, a public ceremony of punishment and destruction that was known as an auto de fe.
The date is July 12, 1562, an auto de fe. Now, the name literally means act of faith, but really it was this terrifying tool of the Spanish Inquisition. It wasn't just a punishment, it was a show. A public spectacle designed to create pure terror and show everyone the absolute, unquestionable power of the church. And the one Landa staged in Maní, well, it would go down in history.
The sheer scale of this thing is just mind-boggling. I mean, just try to imagine this scene. You have living Maya leaders forced to wear these humiliating yellow robes of the condemned. They dug up the bones of their ancestors just to condemn them after they were already dead. And then you have Maya people, stripped to the waist, forced to carry their own sacred objects, family heirlooms, things they revered, to be destroyed.
And here it is, in his own chilling words, Landa's justification. Along with thousands of statues and artifacts were the sacred books of the Maya. To Landa, these were not records of science or history or art. They were, quote, superstition and lies of the devil. And so, he writes, we burned them all. He even adds that the Maya, quote, regretted it to an amazing degree, and which caused them much affliction.
The cultural cost was just catastrophic. In that one fire, Landa himself says he burned 27 codices, these incredibly beautiful folded books that held generations of Maya knowledge. Today, only 4 are known to exist from before the Spanish arrived. 4. In one afternoon, he effectively deleted a civilization's library.
Now, for hundreds of years, this event was just a story in a book. But then, and this is incredible, in 2015, archaeologists found the physical proof. Workers in Maní dug up thousands upon thousands of ceramic fragments, and they were almost all from one specific thing,
Maya incense burners, smashed to bits, burned and buried. It was the archaeological scar left by Landa's fire.
So, you'd think, right, that an act of such insane brutality would be the end of the line for Landa's career. But what happens next is maybe the wildest part of this whole story.
Yeah, Landa's actions were so over the top that even people back then were completely horrified. A new bishop, Francisco de Toral, shows up in the Yucatan, and he's just flooded with complaints. He immediately shuts down the Inquisition, and in 1563, he ships Landa back to Spain to stand trial.
And the charges are serious. I mean, Landa basically ran his own illegal inquisition. But here's the twist. Because he had some seriously powerful friends, including a buddy from childhood who happened to be King Philip II, Landa doesn't get punished. In 1569, he is completely cleared of all charges, and when the bishop who charged him dies, Landa gets a promotion and is sent back to the Yucatan as its new bishop. Unbelievable.
Okay, so here's the crucial detail you have to remember. While he's back in Spain, waiting for this trial to happen, what does he do? He writes a book. It was this huge manuscript, basically his legal defense, explaining why everything he did in the Yucatan was not only right, but necessary. And that book was called Relación de las cosas de Yucatán. And this is where the story flips on its head completely. Because that very book, the one he wrote to justify all the destruction, it would end up being the key to unlocking everything.
See, to prove that he knew what he was talking about, that he understood the evil he was fighting, Landa packed this manuscript with tons of detail about Maya life. He wrote about their social classes, their calendar, their religious ceremonies, and, most importantly, he tried to document their hieroglyphic writing.
But here's the thing. Landa made one gigantic mistake. He assumed the Maya script worked like Spanish, that it was an alphabet where one symbol equals one letter. So he'd ask his Maya helpers, hey, what's your glyph for the letter B? But they didn't have one. So they gave him the glyph for the sound B. He thought he was recording an alphabet, but he was actually, completely by accident, recording a phonetic key.
For almost 300 years, Landa's manuscript was just lost. Then, even after it was found, scholars looked at his alphabet and thought it was total garbage. But then in the 1950s, this Soviet linguist Yuri Knorozov has a flash of genius. He realizes Landa's mistake. It's not an alphabet, it's a syllabary. And just like that, Landa's botched notes became the Rosetta Stone that finally let us read the ancient Maya script.
And there you have it, the ultimate mind-bending paradox. The man who turned almost all of Maya literature into a pile of ash also, completely unintentionally, left behind the one single tool that let us read the history they carved into their temples and monuments.
Which leaves us with this really tough, really uncomfortable question. Diego de Landa's legacy is just this tangled mess of destruction and preservation. He committed an act of cultural vandalism that is basically unforgivable, and yet his work became essential. So what do we do with a guy like that? It's a question that makes you weigh what was lost against the strange, accidental gift he left behind.